Have you ever had someone in your life who seems to exist only to devalue you, who always ignores your boundaries, making light of your feelings or age as if you didn't matter? If you feel angry, frustrated, or even ashamed about this, know that you're not weak for feeling this way, but you can be strong in choosing how to react. In this video, I'll show you how Stoic philosophy can transform the way you deal with people who don't respect you without losing your peace, your self-esteem, or your power of choice. You'll learn to respond with inner strength, not emotional impulse. Chapter 1. You deserve respect, but not everyone will give it. A straightforward presentation on the frustration of dealing with people who don't respect you. It questions patterns of emotional reactivity and promises practical solutions based on Stoic philosophy. Have you ever left a conversation feeling stepped on? Have you ever had someone who seemed to exist only to belittle you, who always talks down to you, ignores your opinion, or uses your words against you? If so, you know what it's like to feel that mixture of anger, shame, and helplessness. That feeling of having lost control of the situation, and even of your own reaction. The worst part is that often, days later, you still carry the frustration. You mentally relive the scene, rethink what you could have said, wonder why you let it happen. And all of this only fuels insecurity and emotional exhaustion. The truth is, you deserve respect, truly. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are, or what you've done. Every human being has value. The problem is that not everyone will recognize it, nor will they act accordingly. And here's a crucial point. You can't control other people's behavior. You can try to explain your boundaries. You can ask for respect. You can even walk away. But in the end, what another person does or says isn't up to you. What does depend on you is how you want to react to disrespect. That's where true strength comes in. Many people respond with anger, defensiveness, or passivity, and all of these reactions take away their power. They allow the emotion of the moment to define their emotional state for hours, days, or even weeks. But what if I told you there was a different way to approach this? One that doesn't rob you of your peace, doesn't make you react impulsively, and even strengthens your self-esteem. That's exactly what we'll explore in this video. We'll explore how Stoic philosophy can help you maintain calm, clarity, and dignity, even when someone tries to belittle you. This isn't a video about revenge or retaliation. It's about true inner strength, about mastering your reactions, protecting your energy, and responding with wisdom, not impulse. Because true freedom comes from within, and it begins with a single choice: to stop allowing others to define your worth. Shall we join you on this journey? Chapter 2. What is Stoicism, and why does it help with toxic people? A brief introduction to Stoicism. Origins, key thinkers, Marcus Aurelius, Sêneca, Epictetus, and how its teachings help us maintain composure in the face of disrespect and provocation. Stoicism originated over 2,000 years ago in ancient Greece, but its message has never been as relevant as it is today. Founded by Zeno of Citium around the 3rd century BC, this philosophy developed especially in Rome, where it found fertile ground in powerful minds like Marcus Aurelius, Sêneca, and Epictetus, men who faced betrayal, injustice, and even slavery, but learned to live with clarity, purpose, and self-control. Contrary to what many believe, Stoicism is not coldness or callous indifference. It's the art of remaining calm amidst chaos, of acting rationally even when strong emotions arise, and of not allowing other people's opinions to define your worth. And this is especially useful when it comes to dealing with people who don't respect you. You've probably felt anger when ignored, frustration when criticized for no reason, or insecurity when hearing a mean comment. These reactions are normal. We are part of the human world. But the problem arises when we let these emotions control our actions. This is where Stoicism comes in. It teaches us that you don't control other people's words, but you do control your response to them. And this distinction is fundamental for anyone who wants to protect their peace and self-esteem in the face of toxic people. Marcus Aurelius, for example, was emperor of Rome and dealt with political intrigue, betrayal, and constant pressure. Even so, he wrote to himself in his book, Meditations, "Don't let the actions of others control your peace." This means understanding that you have power over your choices, but not over the intentions of others. Sêneca, a wealthy man and political advisor, faced countless emotional crises and public conflicts. He understood that true control comes from mastery over oneself, not about others. Epictetus, a former slave, once said, "Men are not disturbed by things, but by the way they see them." This shows us that how we interpret disrespect defines our emotional state. Stoicism doesn't eliminate emotions. It trains you to recognize them, understand them, and consciously choose how you want to act. And that's exactly what we'll explore now. How to control your reactions and maintain composure even when someone tries to take away your peace. Chapter 3. Why do we lose our temper when someone disrespects us? A psychological and philosophical explanation of the emotions that arise when faced with disrespect. Emotional triggers, automatic responses, past wounds, and how the ego can betray us. Have you ever left a conversation feeling completely shaken by something someone said or did? Maybe it was just a phrase, a look, or a seemingly small action, but it triggered a reaction within you, as if it had hit a nerve. This happens because behind our immediate reaction, there are deep mental patterns, emotional triggers, and unresolved memories. When someone disrespects us, whether it's a family member who always speaks with contempt, a boss who ignores our efforts, or even a stranger on social media, what seems like a simple provocation can actually touch on old wounds. Things from the past that we still carry, moments when we were diminished, ignored, or treated as if we didn't matter. And that's exactly where the problem comes in. Our reaction isn't just to the person in front of us, it's also to everything they represent. Furthermore, we have the ego, that little I inside us, that constantly tries to prove that we are valuable, important, and worthy of recognition. When someone questions our opinion, ignores us, or publicly humiliates us, the ego feels threatened, and he reacts with anger, defensiveness, justifications, and often with regret later. Psychology calls this an automatic reaction. It's when the brain, especially the limbic system, responsible for emotions, takes over before reason, located in the prefrontal cortex, has time to intervene. This is useful in situations of physical danger, but often gets in the way in social situations. Stoicism helps us understand this clearly. Epictetus said, "Men are not disturbed by things, but by the way they see them." In other words, the problem isn't the person who disrespects you, it's your interpretation of it. Sêneca, in his letters on practical life, constantly warned about the importance of controlling passions and living consciously. He knew that those who act driven by momentary emotion almost always regret it later. So the crucial question is this: are you reacting to the person in front of you, or to ghosts from your past? Understanding this is the first step to changing your relationship with disrespect. Not to accept it, but to stop letting it steal your inner peace. And that's exactly what we'll look at now, how to use Stoic principles to stay calm and act wisely, even when faced with those who try to anger you. Chapter 4. The Stoic Key. What's in your control and what's not? Focus on the central principle of Stoicism, distinguishing between what you control, reaction, judgment, choice, and what you don't, other people's behavior. How this reduces unnecessary suffering. One of the most powerful ideas in Stoicism, and perhaps the most useful when it comes to dealing with difficult people, is the distinction between what is in your control and what isn't. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Have no expectations, declare war on your expectations." These words seem harsh at first glance, but they reveal a profound truth. You don't control people, their opinions, or their behaviors. What you do control is your own reaction. When someone doesn't respect you, we often try to change them. We want them to understand our feelings, recognize our worth, apologize, or change their ways. But how much time have you spent thinking about this? How many hours have you spent wondering why they act this way, what they did to deserve it, or how they can prove they deserve respect? Here's the problem. You're investing emotional energy in something you can't change, and this only increases your frustration. Stoicism invites us to do things differently. It teaches us to stop and ask, is this up to me? If the answer is no, you have two options. Consciously ignore it, accept that you can't change it, and let go of the emotional burden. Choose your response wisely. Decide how you want to act in that situation without letting fleeting emotions define your day. Remember, you don't control the other person's words. You don't control their intentions. Hey, you don't control the past or the toxic behavior of some people, but you control your interpretation of it. You control your decision to react or not. You control how much you allow it to affect your inner peace, and that makes all the difference. Sêneca, in his philosophical letters, said, "It is insane to ask the gods to give you time. You already have enough time, you just don't use it well." Likewise, it is insane to waste your emotional energy on what you can't control. When you internalize this principle, something begins to change within you. You become lighter, more unshakable, less susceptible to provocation, because you begin to live with clarity about what is yours and what isn't. And that doesn't mean accepting disrespect. It means understanding that you have power over yourself. And that's enough, because while others can speak ill of you, ignore your presence, or act arrogantly, they have no power over your mind, unless you allow them to. And that's exactly what we'll explore now. How to apply these principles in practice with Stoic techniques that will help you maintain your calm immediately when faced with any kind of disrespect. Chapter 5. Stoic techniques for maintaining your calm. Immediately concrete and applicable practices in everyday life. Pausing before reacting, changing your internal narrative, strategic indifference, and focusing on reason. Now that you understand why we lose our temper when faced with disrespect and how Stoicism helps us see this clearly, let's move on to practical techniques. These are tools you can use immediately, whether in a difficult conversation, a nasty comment, or even when someone tries to belittle you personally. The conscious pause. The first step to regaining control is simple. Before speaking or acting, pause for 3 seconds. A breath, a moment of inner silence. This may seem like a small thing, but it is precisely in this space between stimulus and response that your true power emerges. Conscious choice. The Stoics knew this. They understood that most of our reactions come on autopilot. But if you interrupt this process, you gain time to decide, do I want to retaliate or do I want to respond with dignity? Change your internal narrative. You have a constant dialogue with yourself, and this narrative defines your emotional state. Change it. Instead of saying, he did this to annoy me, I will never be valued. This is unfair. Why do I deserve this? Try, he acts this way because of himself, not because of me. My peace does not depend on the approval of others. I can choose my response even if I can't change the provocation. This change doesn't erase the situation, but it does reduce its emotional impact. And that's already a big step toward inner strength. Strategic indifference. Here comes one of the most misunderstood ideas of Stoicism. Indifference isn't coldness, it's emotional fortitude. Strategic indifference means recognizing that you don't need to give emotional power to something you can't control. Whether it's a toxic comment, an unfounded criticism, or a family member who constantly belittles you, you decide not to let it define your mood or your self-esteem. It doesn't mean accepting the behavior. It means not allowing it to disturb your peace. Focus on reason, not emotions. Lastly, remember, you are a rational being, and that's your greatest advantage over momentary impulses. Ask yourself, what would be the most helpful response right now? Would a wiser me do the same thing? I want to do, does it really matter a year from now? This type of question takes you out of reactive mode and puts you in control of your own mind. These techniques don't eliminate difficult situations. They ensure that you won't be a slave to them. With practice, you'll begin to notice that you become less irritated, retaliate less intensely, and maintain your emotional energy intact. Chapter 6. Real-life examples. How to deal with a toxic boss, family member, or co-worker. Practical scenarios on how to apply Stoic teachings to real-life situations. An unfair boss, a belittling family member, a mean colleague, interactions on social media. Now that you understand the fundamentals of Stoicism and the basic techniques for maintaining calm, let's put them all into practice with real-life examples. Because true strength comes from applying it in everyday life, especially when someone tries to take away your peace. The boss who never recognizes your effort. You deliver a job with dedication and they don't even comment. Another colleague takes the credit and you feel angry, frustrated, maybe even ashamed. This is where the conscious pause comes in. Breathe. Ask yourself, is this up to me? The answer is no. You don't control their choices, but you do control your reaction. And you can choose to respond clearly and respectfully without wasting your emotional energy. Also, worth and change your internal narrative. I don't need his approval to know my worth. This strengthens your self-esteem and keeps your mind focused on what matters, your purpose and your actions. The family member who keeps putting you down, family members are in a league of their own. Sometimes they know exactly which buttons to push to irritate you. A comment about your weight, your love life, or your career choices, and voila, you feel inferior. Stoicism reminds us, you don't need to give power to other people's words. Whether through strategic indifference or a firm, rational response, you have a choice. Ask yourself, does this comment say more about him or me? Often, teasing reveals the other person's insecurities more than any flaws of your own. And by understanding this, you begin to release their emotional impact. The coworker who badmouths you or steals. Credit a coworker makes negative comments about you, even without real reason. Or worse, you take credit for something that was your idea. It's easy to fall into the trap of retaliating, complaining, or engaging in emotional warfare. But Stoicism teaches us to act coolly and clearly. If it's relevant, approach it objectively. No emotion, no attack. Just facts and clear intent. If change isn't possible, use strategic indifference. You don't have to approve of the behavior, just decide not to let it affect your inner peace. On social media, anonymous haters and malicious criticism, harsh comments, derogatory messages, or posts meant to provoke you are increasingly common, and they can be deeply draining. Here, the most useful technique is Stoic indifference. What isn't addressed head-on doesn't deserve your attention. Also, remember, you don't control what people say, but you can control how much you allow it to affect your inner peace. And if it's important to respond, do so with reason, not impulsively. Avoid fueling unnecessary conflict. Show self-control and earn far more respect than you retaliate. Chapter 7. The most common mistakes in dealing with disrespect. Frequent mistakes that increase conflict. Responding in kind, internalizing unfounded criticism, and trying to change someone who doesn't want to change. This book shows how to avoid them with Stoic wisdom. Dealing with people who don't respect you is difficult, but often the problem is made worse by the very mistakes we make in the heat of the moment. Let's talk about the 3 main mistakes that sabotage your peace and strengthen others' power over you, and how to avoid each one using Stoic principles. Responding in kind. It's easy to fall into the trap of responding with anger, irony, or aggression when someone offends you. But this only fuels the cycle of hostility. Stoicism teaches us that you don't need to react to prove your worth. Often the strongest response is silence, the most dignified response is calm, and the wisest response is simply to show strategic indifference. When you choose not to engage in emotional warfare, you demonstrate self-mastery, something few have and almost no one expects of you. Internalizing unfounded criticism. Often, an unfair criticism or a mean comment makes you question, is he right? Am I really like this? This happens because we are programmed to seek approval and validation, but Stoicism warns, don't let unfounded opinions define your self-worth. Sêneca wrote, "It is not the wounded man who suffers, but the man who feels the wound." In other words, the damage comes from our interpretation of the situation, not the situation itself. If someone says something cruel without foundation, remember, it reveals more about them than it does about you. This doesn't invalidate your worth, it just exposes the other person's emotional weakness. Trying to change someone who doesn't want to change. Have you ever spent time trying to explain, convince, or even beg someone to respect you? And still, nothing has changed? This happens because change only happens when the person wants it. And if they're not interested in evolving, no amount of conversation will solve it. Epictetus said, "Men are moved by the appearance of things, not by the things themselves." In other words, you can try to change perceptions, but you can never control other people's intentions. And trying to change someone who doesn't want to change only leads to frustration and wasted energy. It's better to accept this quickly and direct your strength where it really matters, yourself. These mistakes are common. We all make them, especially in difficult times. But now you know, every mistake can be transformed into a conscious choice. Chapter 8. How to rebuild your self-esteem after disrespect. How to regain your confidence after an encounter with someone who tried to belittle you. Stoic principles for maintaining your dignity and inner strength. Have you ever been in a situation where, after someone disrespected you, you felt ashamed, questioning, am I really like this? Why didn't I react better? Do I deserve this? This is the worst part of disrespect. It doesn't just hurt in the moment. It stays in your head for days, sometimes weeks. And it can shake your self-esteem, your confidence, and even your sense of who you are. But know this, your worth doesn't depend on the opinion of someone who doesn't respect you. The problem isn't you. It's that person's choice to act with arrogance, malice, or ignorance. And Stoicism teaches us exactly this. You don't need to prove your worth to anyone. Your purpose isn't to please, be validated, or change to fit others' expectations. It's to live in alignment with your principles, even in the face of those who act differently. Marcus Aurelius understood this well. Amidst political power and social pressures, he wrote to himself, don't let the opinions of others define your peace. He knew that true freedom comes from within, not from external approval. So how do you rebuild your self-esteem after such a situation? Start with a simple question. Does this really define me, or is it just a distorted opinion from someone who may not even understand themselves very well? Then practice the conscious pause. Don't let unfair criticism become a judgment on yourself. Ask yourself, is this fact, or is it my interpretation? This helps separate reality from emotional reactivity. Also, use the internal narrative shift. Replace phrases like, "I'm just like this," or "I'll never change," with, "I choose to stand up even if someone tried to tear me down. My peace doesn't depend on the approval of someone who lacks integrity. My worth is not decided by someone who doesn't truly know me." Finally, remember one of the great Stoic teachings: you are responsible for your feelings, but not for what others do or say. Be firm, be kind to yourself, and above all, don't allow anyone to steal your dignity, because you don't need outside recognition to know who you are. You already know. And this inner knowledge is what will keep you strong, calm, and unshakable, even in the face of the most toxic people. Chapter 9, A Practical 7-Day Plan to Start Today, offers the viewer a mini daily action plan with small reflections and exercises based on Stoicism to rebuild self-esteem, stay calm, and strengthen the mind after situations of disrespect. Day 1. Conscious pause. Today, whenever you feel anger or frustration towards someone, pause for 3 seconds before reacting. That's it. Breathe. Remember, you have a choice about how you want to respond. Day 2. What's in my hands? Whenever you face a difficult situation, ask yourself, what's in my hands? Write it down. This helps you focus on what you can control, your thoughts, your actions, your response, and let go of the rest. Day 3. Change your internal narrative. When someone does something that upsets you, change your narrative. Instead of saying, "He did that to piss me off," say, "That says more about him than it does about me." Acknowledge what you felt, but don't let it define your mood. Day 4. Negative visualization. Before confronting a difficult person or a potentially tense interaction, imagine the worst-case scenario, not to scare yourself, but to prepare yourself. This way you reduce surprise and increase your emotional resilience. Day 5. Strategic indifference. Choose a person or situation that usually robs you of your peace and decide not to give it emotional power today. Ignore it, accept it, or respond coldly. Show indifference not as contempt, but as inner strength. Day 6. Reaction journal. At the end of the day, write, what was the most difficult situation I faced today? How did I react? How would I have liked to have reacted? This reflection helps you recognize patterns and gradually evolve. Day 7. Gratitude for endurance. Today, be grateful for the difficult situations you faced. Why? Because they were opportunities for growth. Tell yourself, each challenge makes me stronger. This plan is simple, yet powerful, and most importantly, you can start over whenever you want. By the end of a week, you will already notice a difference in the way you deal with people and with yourself. Now let's see how these principles can be used to prevent others' opinions from defining your worth, and how to rebuild your self-esteem based on what really matters, your own judgment. Chapter 10. The art of not letting others' opinions define your worth. Reflection on how our internal values should prevail over external judgments. It shows how to build a solid and unshakable identity, even in the face of unfair criticism or toxic people. Have you ever spent hours trying to understand why someone said something bad about you? Have you ever wondered, I wonder if tin reason, am I really like this? It's normal. We are social beings. We are programmed to seek approval, validation, and belonging. But the more you allow other people's opinions to define your worth, the more vulnerable you are to criticism, provocation, and unfair judgment. Stoicism teaches us a powerful truth. You don't need to prove anything to anyone. Your worth comes from within, from who you choose to be every day, how you act, your principles, and your integrity. Marco Aurelius wrote, "Have no expectations. Declare war on your expectations." He understood that expecting constant recognition and approval from others is a recipe for suffering, because not everyone will recognize your worth. and that doesn't make it any less. Sêneca, in his philosophical letters, constantly warned about the importance of living with purpose and clarity, even when circumstances were adverse. He knew that those who live at the mercy of others' opinions will never be free. And Epictetus, a former slave and master of wisdom, said, "Men are not disturbed by things but by the view they have of them." In other words, the problem isn't what someone says, it's the emotional weight you give it. So how do you build an unshakable identity? Start with a profound question. What is my real worth? What defines who I am? Answer honestly. Write it down. Review it whenever you need to remember. Then practice strategic indifference. Don't give emotional power to those who don't understand you. Don't respect your efforts or act with ill intent. This doesn't mean arrogance, it means protecting your energy. Finally, remember this. You are not what someone said about you. You are who you choose to be, even after hearing it. And that's exactly what we'll explore in the next chapter. How to use disrespect as fuel for growth, not as a reason to diminish. Have you ever noticed that many people spend years carrying around bad words they heard long ago? Meaningful comments, unfair criticism, unfounded disrespect. They repeat it mentally as if it were a mantra, and they end up creating an image of themselves based on what others said, not on who they really are. But Stoicism offers another perspective. Use disrespect as motivation, not as an insult. Chapter 11. Transform desire into personal motivation. When someone tries to belittle you, it reveals more about them than it does about you. Generally, those who belittle others do so because they need to feel superior, and this only exposes their emotional weaknesses. So why continue to carry this burden? Why let someone who doesn't even know you well influence your self-esteem? Instead, use this experience as fuel. Use it to strengthen your mind, your discipline, and your commitment to yourself. When someone says you're not capable, prove it with action. When someone ignores your effort, keep working with dignity. When someone speaks ill of you, show consistency. When someone tries to shake you, show serenity. That's the real answer. Not with retaliation, but with calm, clarity, and continuous action. Remember, people may try to belittle you, but they only succeed if you stop. As long as you keep moving forward, acting purposefully, and holding your head high, no one will knock you down for long. And that's what we're taking home now. An invitation to reflect, act, and apply these principles in your daily life. Let's close this video with a clear and powerful message. If you've made it this far, congratulations. This already shows that you're willing to change, and that's the first step to rebuilding your self-esteem and strengthening your mind in the face of those who don't respect you. Throughout this video, we saw how Stoicism can transform your relationships with difficult people. We understood why we lose our temper with certain attitudes, how to recognize what we truly control, and most importantly, how to maintain calm and dignity even when someone tries to belittle you. You learned how to pause before reacting, the importance of strategic indifference, how to rebuild your self-esteem based on internal, not external principles, and how to transform disrespect into motivation. Real. Remember, you don't need to prove your worth to anyone. Your peace, strength, and clarity come from within, and that's where they should stay. If this content brought value to your life, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Many people are searching for exactly these answers. Don't forget to like this video if you haven't already, and subscribe to the channel to receive more content on practical philosophy, a strong mindset, and emotional development. See you next time.